So welcome everyone to our cyber mentoring session, our 1 o'clock session today. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Angela Delamar, and I'm an education specialist with Region 1 ESC Gear Up. And it's my privilege today to facilitate this cyber mentoring session with an expert in the topic of college admissions essays. And the expert joining us is Janine Robinson. Students, I know you're seniors. I know most of you are probably in the process of writing your college admissions essays. So this session today will hopefully give you some advice, some tips on how to make your essay as competitive and compelling as it can be to get you into the college of your dreams. So welcome, Janine. I'm going to turn it over to you. And once again, students, please fire away any questions by either unmuting your mic or by using the chat feature.
Okay, and then I just hit something. Can you still see me, Angela?
Yes, I can see you.
Okay, great. So I think I will, I just want to introduce myself. Some of you I've worked with, I think, maybe not. I've been down to Texas 4 times giving these workshops. My background is journalism. I was a news reporter for newspapers for a number of years. I was an editor of magazines, so writing is my profession. I also went and got certified to be a high school English teacher in California. But I got into the essay side of things when I helped my own daughter. She was where you were at. Actually, it was the year before her senior year, trying to write these essays. She had no idea how to do it. And what we realized when we read the prompt and started thinking about it is that these are really a different type of essay than you write for most English papers. It's not an academic formal essay. It's a more casual tone. In fact, you try to write more like you talk. The idea is that you can write a personal essay that really showcases to the colleges something about yourself. Just sort of focus on one essential part of yourself that you can show to schools that will help them differentiate you from the other students. So over the years, I've been writing about this topic, trying to learn as much as I can. I realize that there are some things you can do that can quickly help you use some of the, include some of the elements that you need in your essay to make it effective. Good essays, there's a long list. An effective college application essay, whether it's a personal statement, which is the longer core personal essay that you write for the Common Application. The Common App, it's called the Common Application, Common App Essay, is a personal statement. The Common Application is the application that you use when you're applying to private colleges, whether it's the top tier Ivy Leagues, Harvard, Stanford, or smaller private schools around the country, in Texas too, Rice University. That you have to write that personal statement. There's another whole separate application system called Apply Texas. You use that if you're applying to any public school, university in Texas, whether it's UT Austin, what's the Aggie school, Angela?
Texas
A&M. Woo! Okay, I'm from California, so I'm not as familiar or versed in a lot of Texan. Okay. But Apply Texas is your application, and they have 3 prompts, 3 different essays, topic A, B, C. I don't know if you've reviewed those yet. If you're applying to any Texas school, there's a good chance you're going to need to write at least 1 or 2 of those essays, possibly all 3. And I'm going to review those later. So the idea is that all of these essays, to be effective, there's a number of features that they need. To me, one of the most important is that they grab that reader at the beginning, that they're engaging, that you want to read it. Because if you lose them in the first sentence or 2, these admissions officers, they're reading stacks of these. They're going to go, read that, it's yawn, next. You don't want yours to be in that pile, to be overlooked or dismissed for any reason. So you want to have something at the very beginning that makes them go, wow, I want to keep reading. So engage at the beginning. You also want them to be focused. One of the biggest mistakes or common pitfalls on writing these essays, whether it's a Common App or any of these three that you would write for the Applied Texas, is if they're too general. If the student tries to just cram in everything about themselves. What happens if you try to say too much, it gets general and bland. The trick is to focus. And my idea usually on how to focus an essay is, instead of trying to say too many things about how you have these great qualities or values, pick one. You know, and I have this online boot camp that I'm going to walk you through that actually has some guidance on finding these qualities or these core values that you have, so you can pick one to showcase in that essay about yourself. Whether you're creative, a problem solver, whether you're empathetic, you're resourceful, you're loyal, whatever quality, a main descriptor of you, that will give it a focus. And then the rest of your essay kicks that idea around and has other samples, examples, and builds a case and shows the reader why you're that way and why it matters. That's a more effective essay than one that tries to, incorporate everything about you. That's great. The other pitfall, students think that these essays need to be impressive. They feel like you need to wow the reader with impressive accomplishments, achievements. They think that they have to have, been student body president or thrown the winning pass for a football game. And this is just not true. And Angela knows this, that in fact, our favorite essays almost across the board are those that use every day. We use the word mundane, ordinary experiences, interactions, topics. Instead of a student writing about how she was the star in all the school musicals, one student wrote about her obsession with karaoke. It was way more interesting. And it's an interest. I'm not sure why this works so well. If it's because every day is just we connect more with readers, or if it works as a better springboard to show things about yourself. But don't overlook those little ordinary things. Summer jobs, I always talk about, we found the best essay topics. Whether you are mopping floors at Whataburger, or if you're, even babysitting, you can still find little moments or things that happen to you during those experiences that you can weave and spin into an excellent essay. So, you want to engage at the beginning. You want to have that focus. You don't want to impress necessarily, and you don't want to put too many things in your essay. Another thing I think is huge to an effective essay, if it's highly personal. And personal means you showcase your personality. It also means that you're vulnerable, that you open up, that you don't just try to put this face, this perfect, generic face on your essay, like I'm the perfect student. No, it's your flaws. It's your little quirks. That's what sets you apart and makes you interesting and likable. So don't be afraid to open up, to sometimes show some doubt. You don't have to be perfect. And then another big feature is that you want to have your essay have meaning as well. So you showcase something about your personality, your quirks, your little obsessions, experiences, things that have happened, but you also need to show your character. And character is like what you value, what you care about, those core values. So how do you do that? How do you add that depth to your essay? Angela gave me some feedback that's come from some other schools and students where I've shared my approach with these essays, which basically, in a nutshell, is, find that quality that you want to showcase about yourself. Say that you're super loyal. And to showcase that quality, look for a time or a moment or an interaction or experience where you were loyal or your loyalty was tested. And you start with that moment, and then you background it, and then you step back and you look at what you learned from that little experience and share that. And it's that process of sharing a little moment only in one paragraph, two at the most, that you then shift and you step back and you look back on that experience and you say, wow, what did I learn about myself when that happened? How did I deal with it? What good came out of all that? You know, how did I think about it? How did I feel? You know, was there a quality that I developed when I was dealing with that? So there's a lot of different ways to take a simple moment and find meaning and show depth and reveal to colleges that you're a thinking person. There's a big word that these admissions people throw around that they love called intellectual vitality. It's really a big word for how you think. They want to see what's going on in your head. They want to see how you take a problem or take a situation and how you look at it and how you weigh the good and the bad and what it inspires in you and what you read into it. That's what they want to see in these essays. So how do you show them that? So I basically have this approach that I've boxed up and packaged into what I call my online boot camp. And you're very fortunate because your Gear Up program has invested in this and you all have access to it. I'm going to share it here real quick so you can see it. And then Angela can really quickly make sure that you know how to access it as well.
Definitely. So students, while Janine's pulling up her screen that shows how to get this online boot camp, just wanting to make sure that everybody knows how to access this, because after this session is over, students, of course, you're going to be continuing working on your essay and you may need some further direction. Basically, students, you have, and if you didn't know this already, you have access to a website called myregion1.org. And every single one of you has a free account with tons of resources about your college admissions experience. And the way you log in, Janine, you're going to be going to the demo account again, but students, the way you would log in is you would go to myregion1.org, you would see the screen that Janine is sharing with us. You would type for your username the letters GU, and then students, each of you have a 9-digit Gear Up ID number. If you don't know it, your Gear Up facilitator can give it to you. So students, the way you log in is GU and your 9-digit number, and then your password is your 9-digit Gear Up ID number, just by itself. Don't put the letters GU.
Whatever.
And so that's how you sign in. Now, Janine, if you could go to our demo account so they can see what it would look like. No, not demon. That's funny.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, that's okay. Yeah, a little extra letter there. Students, once you successfully log in, the myregion1.org account looks like this. There's tons of cool features. The profile tab allows you to fill in information about yourself, and it actually will help create a resume. The discovery tab has lots of questions about what things you like to do and don't like to do, and based on that, it recommends careers and majors for you. Under My Favorites, it allows you to explore colleges and financial aid information, all kinds of good things. And so I invite you, students, if you haven't already, this is an amazing resource. But if you look under school announcements, there's a little sentence there that says, access Janine Robinson's essay bootcamp at the following link. If you click that link, that will take you to the most complete resource you will ever find about writing college admissions essays. Students, if you are prompted for a password after you click the link, the password is Gear Up. All caps, all one word. Janine, when she clicked it right now, was not asked for a password because we've accessed it several times from this computer. But you may be asked for a password, and it is Gear Up, all caps, all one word. And so now I'm going to turn it back over to Janine, but just remember, students, that anything she's showing you, you have complete access to, as well as your teacher, anytime to continue your essay writing efforts.
Right. And Angela, isn't it true that any student, you know, that's a lot of information. Yeah. What's that password? What's my number? Right. That they can ask their Gear Up facilitator, their teacher for help on that.
Yes. So teachers that are in the classrooms right now listening in, I know I went through that super fast. Your Gear Up facilitators can walk you through that process. If anyone has any trouble at all, I'm Angela Delamar here at Region 1. Reach out to me and I'll walk you through that process myself. Okay.
Okay, so say, no matter where you are in the process of writing an essay, if you're working on the Common App, that personal statement essay, addressing one of those 5 prompts, basically writing an essay about something about yourself you want to showcase. This is designed to help you write what's called a personal statement essay. And it has 10 steps, which is great because if you're starting at the beginning, it'll walk you through those steps from brainstorming a great idea all the way to how to write the conclusion, how to edit it and polish it up. Maybe you already have an idea and you're stuck on how do you take that real life moment and craft it into an anecdote to use for the introduction. You can go to this boot camp and there is one of the steps will explain how to write an anecdote, and there's a little video that goes along with it. Maybe you've written it and you don't have a conclusion.
They don't hear the class.
Here's step 9, how to write a conclusion. Maybe you're done with your draft. Now, how do I edit it? How do I make sure it's polished? How do I cut it to make the word count? Step 10, how to edit your essay. That one challenge of what Angela's talking about, how some students have a great little idea. They've even found a real life moment or some experience or interaction to use to illustrate that. They know how to do the background, but then what do I say about it? Where do I go from there?
Janine, let me jump in, and I'd like to ask a question from the student in Brownsville, the one who is a quadruplet. And as Janine continues to walk us through this process, I know we had a student that messaged us that she was asking, is that a good topic, being a quadruplet? And so I'm curious, how did that student start their essay? Did they use an anecdote? And yeah, did that student use an anecdote that they could possibly share, and we would then be able to take a look at that. So Janine, go ahead and continue on, but we'll see in the message board or something that student would be happy to show us that.
Sure. So anyway, no matter where you're at in the process, you can jump around and find help for different parts of writing these essays. And this approach also works perfectly for all 3 of the prompts, A, B, and C for Apply Texas. You have to tweak it a little bit. You're not necessarily just writing whatever you want for the personal statement, but you have more specific prompts. However, this works perfectly for each of those, and I'll go over that a little more later. So if you're just starting, you call up this site and you go start at home. That's where you start. And there's a little bit of directional reading here, just talks about how it all works. It's just this quick page. And then it will keep prompting you to the next step. So you go to the introduction. And there's a short video. It's 5 minutes long. They're all 3 minutes, 4 minutes, very short. Play the video. And in 5 minutes, you will know exactly what you need in your essay to make it on target. Then you go to step 1, and then that sort of helps you find those defining qualities. What are if I'm going to describe myself, what are 3 qualities? Am I a leader? Am I engaging? Am I imaginative? Am I a perfectionist? To get a couple of those descriptors that you can use to give that focus to your essay. Again, little video, talks all about it. Done with that, go to step 2. And this is where it helps you talk about how to find a time or a real life moment, something that happened to you that illustrates or is an example of the point you're making about yourself in that essay. If the point you're making about yourself is how you're loyal, it will help you to brainstorm a time or a moment, some little thing that happened that's related to you being loyal. Maybe it's a time that your loyalty was tested. Maybe it's a time that maybe you weren't that loyal and you became loyal after this thing happened. So this is something that will help you find those little moments. In my approach to these personal essays, I love to start with that little moment, those things that happened. The reason is those are interesting, and they reach out and they grab the reader. Because they're little stories and you want to know what happened, and stories are the best way to hook or grab a reader. You don't have to come up with that gimmicky first line, that really witty first line. I always had trouble with those. Instead, you take a little thing that happened that is an example of the bigger point you want to make about yourself. So helps you find one of those times. This is something that helps you kind of get an idea of what topics ideas seem to work the best. There are some topics that have red flags, which just means that they're topics that you need to be aware of, that a lot of students write about them, so they become overdone and they fall in the cliche box. Again, think if you're an admissions officer, you have the stack of essays and you read one after the other about the soccer game, right? Or you read one after the other about on the mission trip. Those experiences are still wonderful and huge, impactful. However, so many students write about them that they become overdone. And what happens is the admissions officers are like, oh no, not another story, about a mission trip. Some of those sort of overdone ones, sports in general, my boyfriend getting dumped by a boyfriend or girlfriend, not a great topic. The sports injuries, and then mission trips, volunteering. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't write a great essay about these, but if you are in that topic area that is overdone, you need to dig deeper to find something unexpected to say about what you write about. Or, like if you're writing about the mission trip, find some moment, something that happened on that mission trip, and make that about your essay about that, and let the mission trip be in the background. Think of something that happened while you're on that trip to share and write about. So this will really quickly help you understand what are the pitfalls and what topics really seem to work better. And so it goes on and on. One of my big mantras, if you come away with anything from this little cyber workshop, is the value and the beauty and the magic of a problem when it comes to writing a personal essay. If you can think of a problem, you automatically have a little story. If you think about it, if you're looking for those little times or that thing that happened to start your essay, if you think about a problem, you're going to have a little story, because every story, there's no such thing as a story without a problem. Problems are, if there's a problem, it means something happened. And I used this analogy before, that if you write your paper about this, maybe you went on a big backpack adventure, and you write about how you love the mountains and you hiked around and it was beautiful, and you saw that you love nature. That's all good, but think about reading about that. I find that a little boring. It's like, oh, the beautiful mountains and the sunset. Good, but it's sort of boring to read about. How about if you're camping and you're camping by a river, and in the middle of the night, the thunderstorm came and the river started flooding up and your tent collapsed? Now I'm way more interested. And why? Because there was a problem. And if you think about any movie that you like, your favorite movie, a favorite book, anything, think about the problem in those. And that's what makes those interesting. So the idea with essays, it's the same thing. What we like to do is we use those problems as our hooks. So we take the little story that involves some kind of problem and start the essays with those. So if you're thinking like, I have nothing to write about, there's no stories, think about the times you've gone home from school and your mom or dad said, anything happened today? Anything happen? What's that mean when something happens? Something kind of went sideways. We're not talking always catastrophes. It could be a catastrophe, you know. You failed your exam, or you forgot a homework assignment. It could be a boulder fell on your car. There could be an earthquake. Those are good, juicy problems too. But my point is that all problems can make good little stories as well. It can be just maybe a little argument that you had. It could be a misunderstanding. So if you're brainstorming problems over here, these are section 1, 2, or 3 is where you walk through the 10 steps in the course. So say you're done. While you go through these steps, there's these related handouts. You know, if you're at a point where you're about ready to get your writing plan, it'll refer you to the related handout. There's a great sample outline here that'll help you structure your essay, build it. There's sample essays. I always encourage students to read what other students have written to get an idea of the kind of the style of these essays, how they're more familiar, how they use these little stories. I have 5 of them here. You can go and read. And you'll see a pattern. They all start with a little mini story. The word for those is anecdote. It's just a big word. All it means is a real life moment, something that happened that's then told very concisely in like a paragraph. And you'll see a problem in each one of these. This kid started about the problem where he hoisted himself up in a tree and got stuck. That was his problem. And then he went on to talk about how he dealt with it and how he used his love of knot tying to deal with it. And then he looked back and reflected on what he learned from that experience. Boom, awesome essay. This student starts a little moment. I'll read it to you. During my break from volunteering at the hospital, I chose to go to my favorite Mexican restaurant by the sea. While sitting next to the window, I looked into the horizon as I saw small waves wash the day's debris onto the moist sand. As I was taking in the beautiful scenery, an elegant lady motioned me over. Not wanting to be rude, I walked over to her table. "We're ready to order," she stated, assuming I was a waitress. So there's a problem, right? And did she start and talk about, I'm going to talk about the time this thing happened to me? No, she just started and showed us that. It was like a little video peek at what happened at that moment. And is there a problem? You bet. And then she goes and then she backgrounds. She kind of gives us the context and explains the bigger picture. While Hollywood portrays Hispanic women as being housemaids or waitresses who often speak incoherent English, the majority of Americans perceive Hispanics as uneducated and don't believe they have the potential to be successful. Ever since I can remember, it's been tough, if not impossible, to fit into our small town in California. My culture and all the assumptions that go with it always followed me. My family spoke Spanish at home. We ate enchiladas for dinner instead of pasta. Instead of shopping at our local Safeway store, we went to the flea market on Sundays after church to get a raspado, or frozen ice drink. I felt humiliated when instead of speaking flawless English, I spoke with an accent. So she goes in, she starts with a little moment to show us a bigger issue that she's been dealing with, right? And it has a little problem in it. So, and then she backgrounds it, sort of explains a little bit about her background. She's Hispanic, she's in a small town in California. A lot of people don't get her. Then she talks, and then this is the most important part of the essay, where she steps back and takes a look at this problem or issue that she's facing. She shares how she thinks about it, and also sort of how she's dealt with this problem. She says, "I heard all the grim statistics my entire life. Hispanics live in economic deprivation. They're not as likely to pursue higher education as other races, and young Hispanic women are the most likely to get pregnant. As I heard those stereotypes, they began to slowly sink into my brain and haunt me as questions arose. What if I really am not as intelligent as others? What if I don't have the fortitude to go against the current? The choice of whether or not to allow being Hispanic be the single barrier that stood between my success and failure rested solely on me. I started to look for opportunities to change patterns, the predictions, and most of all, my self-doubt in order to prove that we Hispanics have the ability and potential to be successful. So here she's taking a look at how is she dealing, how does she think about this issue or problem. And then here's some steps. One of the things it talks about is you share that little problem, and then you say how you feel about it, and then you talk about what steps you took. You don't have to solve it, but just you personally, what have you done? And she says, the fall of my junior year, I started a tutoring group for students who faced oppressive stereotypes in my community. I knew that children deserved a safe place to obtain educational support and feel safe. It became home for my many students who felt trapped within the confines of society, and a stimulating intellectual environment in which they could get one-on-one help on their homework. The progress the students made throughout the year was unbelievable. Karen, an English learner who needed extra help with her reading and writing skills, came in not being able to recite the alphabet. Now she has the ability to write complete sentences. Julissa, another English learner who has learning disabilities, is now able to write complete sentences as well. And she goes on and on, more specific examples of the steps she took to just sort of deal with this issue. And then in the end, she talks about how she thinks she's going to take what she's learned and apply that to her future goals. Now I am ready to overcome any obstacles and stereotypes on my way to success. Instead of letting them affect me negatively, I will rise and embark on a new journey in which I will prove all those who doubted me wrong. Yeah. So this is a sample essay. You can look at these essays. One, it might give you an idea for a topic that you want to write about. That's totally fine. It's not copying. It's you're inspired, and it maybe made you think, hey, you know, I've had some sort of experience myself that maybe I could use for my topic. But all these essays, you can learn how they started with one moment, how they crafted it. See how she used a little piece of what somebody said right here? We're ready to order, she stated. That's using sort of fiction writing techniques where you give it a storytelling feel. It's very readable. It draws us in. You're telling a story. And consider using that. Here's one about a student whose dad was very ill, and she nursed him, and he passed away. And this is about a more intense topic, which if you have had something intense in your background, I encourage you to write about it, because you know, those are the kinds of experiences that really are life-changing and that you learn huge lessons from. Not all students have had these kind of real hardships, whether they're financial or personal illness, a death, but I do encourage you to consider writing about it. So anyway, there's a lot of sample essays. This guy just wrote about how he's a giant kid. He's 6'7", almost 300 pounds. Talked about how it affected him, how it made him feel, how it was a problem, and how he dealt with it. Here's sort of funny. He says, when I went to a grocery store, random people consistently asked me if I played football. When I told them no, the men always lectured me not only about why I should play football, but what I should be doing in my life, with my body, with my potential. I normally just nodded and smiled, but it bothered me that they thought they knew what was best for me. Not only did I never play football, but I defied many of the assumptions people made about me. How many people my size love nothing more than mixing up a chocolate batter and decorating a 3-layer cake? Beside my passion for baking, I also love working with little kids. For the last 2 summers, I volunteered at a camp where I taught kids how to surf. My nickname was Teddy Bear. If I wanted to make my friends fall on the ground laughing, I reminded them of my dream to learn to play the violin. In general, I ignore what people say or think about me when it comes to my size. Instead of reacting, I usually just give them a smile. On many levels, there are advantages to towering over most people. I always get the front seat since I don't fit in the back. No one ever dares call shotgun. I usually have the best seat in the house, whether it's a rock concert or a ball game, no matter where I sit. And if people are getting rowdy and making my friends uncomfortable, all I need to do is step in the middle and simply ask, what's going on? And they disperse. So here he talks, we use that same approach. What's a problem? There's problems that are from the outside, things that happen to you can use. There's also internal ones. Maybe you have a phobia. a fear of the dark, of spiders. Maybe you have an obsession. You're obsessed with Pokemon Go. Maybe this guy, what's his problem? He's huge. It makes him different. It's a problem. So then he writes about it. He starts with a little example of what it's like being him, and then he goes into how it makes him feel, how he deals with it, and then he kicks around the good and bad of it, where he talks about, there's sort of an upside to my problem. And then he talks about what he learned from dealing with it. So even the people who are intimidated at first by me eventually come around once they get to know me. Like the water polo player at the restaurant. Within about 2 weeks, we finally had a conversation and ended up finding we had a lot in common. In fact, he ended up as my best friend. For me, it is a small world after all, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And now you probably want to know how it started. So again, he has this problem. He's a huge guy. But can you think of a little example of a time or moment that could show us what it's like to have that problem? And that's where you get the idea for the anecdote. And here's his anecdote. While grabbing lunch between games at a water polo tournament, I noticed one of my new teammates rarely looked me in the eye. Instead of taking the empty seat next to me, he opted to sit across the table. Even when I tried to start a conversation with him, he only looked down and mumbled, "Oh, hey," and walked away. This type of cold shoulder treatment wasn't new to me. I'm a big guy. In bare feet, I'm about 6'7" tall, and I'm pushing 300 pounds. Yes, it can be a pain. I bump my head going through doorways. I don't fit in most mid-sized cars, and I can barely squeeze into most classroom desks. But I understand that the world is made for average-sized people, and I like to think I'm above average. One thing, however, is hard for me to take. People who don't know me assume I'm mean. So he actually took this problem and focused it even more. It's not just a physical problem. There's assumptions people make. And then he goes into reflecting more on how what those assumptions are, how he deals with it, and what he's learned. So he took a simple thing, simple problem, and spun it into an interesting essay. It's all those little details. Notice when he reflects, he doesn't try to say super deep, I sound so smart kind of sentences. He just tells you how he thinks about things. He uses a regular language, I feel like I can hear him talk. Here's one where talk about a mundane, ordinary topic. This student wrote about how he loves collecting junk. He got into NYU, one of the best schools in the country. So again, we took him through the same process, and I would say the student had asked about being a quadruplet, one of four, right? Is that a good topic? There's a lot of students. I've seen a lot. It's a little bit on the overdone side. A lot of twins. I'm a twin. It's hard. It's all about your identity. You can write a great essay about it. What I always tell students that if they're in that area of overdone, try to think of something unexpected to say about it. If you're writing about being a twin, yes, it's all about how I want to be my own person, but see if there's something that we wouldn't ever have thought of, what it's like to be a twin. And that would set it apart from sort of the cliche assumptions. And I would say you could think of that too, being a quadruplet. What is something about being a quadruplet that all of us would never even imagine it's like? I would say, obviously I would go, are you a quadruplet? Are all four of you super different? Are three of them the same and you're sort of the oddball out? Take a look at, the idea is, how has that defined you? How has it shaped you? So I would go, what's a problem? Has there been a problem being a quadruplet? And see if you could think of some problems that it's caused you. But if you think of the problems, then think about how you dealt with them, and then see if there's a quality that you have shaped in yourself. That's how you look, how something has defined you or shaped you. I'll go back to that more. But so anyway, this guy's writing about he likes to collect junk. So what's the approach? I like to collect junk. Okay, what quality has that shaped or core value? And can you think of a time that is an example that shows us what this topic's about? So he described a time that he's with his buddies and they spotted a free trampoline, and they talk about how they dragged that thing home on top of his car. So it's a little moment, shares that, and then he goes and sort of explains the bigger picture of other things junk that he's collected. I scored a giant box television from a church sale, towed my slip-covered couch home from a neighbor's yard sale, rescued old school street signs that decorate my walls from my grandma's trash. So when I saw the sign for a free trampoline, I knew it had to be mine. And then he talks about how to most, a 10-year-old trampoline wouldn't be worth dragging home, but to me, it was almost too good to be true. And then he talks about why he likes junk, and what it means to him and what it represents. So what this essay actually turns into is one about values, what he cares about and why. And he doesn't get super deep in it. Toward the end, he says, sometimes I surprise myself by how far I will go to hunt down a good deal. To me, however, the deal is just the beginning. I love creating useful things out of other people's junk. Just last week, I built a shelving system out of some scrap wood and minifans for my friends that was moving to college. Last winter, I made a makeshift bobsled out of 2 old snowboards and shopping cart wheels. I've learned that things don't lose their value after a few years of wear and tear. My neighbor's trash literally is my treasure. So a lot of it is you need to share the little problem, how you felt about it, how you dealt, the steps you took to handle it, and then the most important part is shifting back and saying, what does that mean? What does that say about me? What have I learned in the process of dealing with that problem? And why does it matter? Why does it matter that I value people's trash? So those are some sample essays that I encourage you to read. And then there's all these other little handouts. Say you're stuck. I have a little story, but I don't know how to spin it into that introduction, into that anecdote. Here's some sample anecdotes that you can read to see how other people wrote them. And this anecdote builder is a worksheet that helps you collect details to put your anecdote together. So I want to talk about the 3 applied Texas essays because this whole approach of finding a problem works perfectly for these as well. These essays, they're all, I think there's not a stated word limit as far as I know, but I think the idea I've heard is 500 words around there, 450, 550, 500 words. That's a pretty meaty essay. And there's 3 prompts. You have to check with your school that you want to go to the admissions page to see which of these you're required to write. If there's an optional one, my advice, write it anyway. Write it even if it's optional. Why not? This is another chance for you to show something else about yourself. If they say prompt C is optional, write it anyway.
Yes.
It's an opportunity. So here's the 3 applied Texas prompts. And I'll just go through them quickly. Topic A, what was the environment in which you were raised? Describe your family, home, neighborhood, or community. Explain how it has shaped you as a person. I like to substitute the word background for environment. It's basically tell us the world you come from. Tell us about your background. And again, you don't have to explain everything. Pick one thing about it. And that's why they give you these examples. Don't just talk about your whole environment or background. They say family, home, neighborhood, community. Pick one of those. And I also like to throw in culture. Culture is another wonderful thing to write about your background. And this is a chance, if you are a student that has had struggles or challenges because of your background, maybe there's financial hardship, maybe there were problems with family dynamics, write about those. Consider sharing that here. Schools want to know if you're doing great in school, you're doing the grades, you're towing the line, but if you also had other obstacles that you had to overcome in order to be as successful as you are, that's way more impressive. But they don't know that unless you share that with them. And that's one of the points of these essays. Same with your common application topic. If you have had a hardship, I would really think seriously about using that as your topic. And again, you don't write about all the hardships. You focus in on one specific thing that happened, and then go from there, how you dealt with it, what you learned about yourself, and end up with the upside. Always with these problems, it's not just a big, my life stinks, you know, it's been really hard. Yes, share a problem, that's fine, but then you need to quickly turn it into how I felt, and then the steps I took to deal with it. You don't have to have solved it. Most problems don't just go away. You might still very well be dealing with it. Just share how you manage it, how you cope, how you deal with it. And then the big, most important part, what you learned in the process of dealing with it. So this one, again, the idea, think of a problem and then something will have happened. And there's two parts to this question that you need to keep in mind while you're answering it. And if you write about what you learned from the problem, it will cover both. But describe your environment, give an example of something that happened in your family, then give the background, explain about your family situation, then how you dealt with it and what you learned. If you do that, you'll also be answering the second part. Explain how it has shaped you as a person. If something shaped you as a person, it's because you've grown or learned something or changed a little bit. There's also a little sample, mini sample outline here. If you find that helpful, you don't have to use it. It's just sort of a guide to plug in your ideas so they have that flow and continuity, and the ideas sort of one supports the other. Share a moment, incident, or time from your background when something happened, include some type of problem, then go back and describe what led up to this moment, explain how you handled the problem, the steps you took, include how you felt. Share what you learned from handling the problem, focus on one core quality that helped you develop or was tested. What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about the world? What was the upside? Conclusion, and then you just sort of link back to what you started, and talk about how you're going to use what you learned in your future goals and dreams. Here's a wonderful sample essay about a background. I love it. It uses the same approach. Oh, that's weird. I don't know why it's not working. Well, anyway, this is a student that wrote about her, I think it was her Chinese background. Instead of just saying, I come from, you know, my parents came from China, you know, I've been conflicted about my heritage and my new life in the United States. She took one moment to illustrate what it was like to be her in her background. She crafted it into a little mini story she started the essay with, and it was about the time that she was out to eat with her family at a Chinese restaurant, and she's trying to use chopsticks, and she's no good at it, and like one of her meat dumpling things goes shooting off the table, and her dad's embarrassed and like, you can't use chopsticks, and she talked about how she was embarrassed, and the reason it's called Banana Girl, I'm trying to remember what they said, that you're yellow on the outside and white on the inside, or some ridiculous you know, thing that I guess she was labeled at one point. And then she went on and talked about how she felt about living in that dual culture, and why she actually did value her Chinese heritage. And she reflected on what she learned about the different challenges of those living in that dual culture. It was an excellent essay, but what really was wonderful is that little moment. It's almost entertaining. Why is it entertaining? Problems, sometimes they're sort of funny, you know, when they go down. So don't underestimate any little moment. A lot of those moments that you're looking for are the ones that you like can't wait to tell your friend, you know, oh, you won't believe what happened today, right? What happened? I'll bet you it was a problem. Okay, so for the approach works exact same for topic B and even C. In this one, you pick one of these to write about, your identity, and that can be cultural. If you write about something cultural, I would say about, say, your Hispanic heritage, for topic A, I would try to write about something different for topic B. You don't have to, but with the identity one, I'd see if you can zero in on an interest or a talent. So the idea here is you pick one of these, and then you want to talk about how it says defines you in an essential way. Defines means how's it shaped you, how you think, or what you learned from it. So say you want your talent is playing clarinet. You know, instead of just talking about, I first wanted to play clarinet when I saw my sister play, and then I took lessons and I got really good, and then I've been in recitals and I won an award. That's all good stuff, but it's boring to read about. I don't want to read about it, especially if I had already read 100 essays. But if you think of a time you had a problem, something went sideways, a mistake, a setback, a challenge that relates to that talent of playing the clarinet, I'm going to be way more interested. And I think I use this example. It's not the best, but say you're playing in a talent show and your reed cracks in the middle of it, and you start squawking away, and it's your time to do a solo's coming up. That's a problem, and you got my interest. I like that stuff. I know, it's just human nature. It's not that we want bad things to happen. It's that's life, and they've happened to all of us, and we connect, we get it. And we also want to know what happened. So start with that little moment, and then give the background. Then you can explain how you got into clarinet and why you're good at it, and then talk about how you dealt with that moment. And then this is the most important part, you pull back and you look back at what happened, and you say what you learned from it. Did something good come of that? Did it change you a little bit? Can you share how you thought about it? And what did you learn? Did one of your core qualities get tested? Did you use one of your core qualities to handle that problem? And Angela told me that she got some feedback from some schools that had been working on their essays, already know this approach, find a quality, find a problem, use a mini story to start it. So they've landed on some good ideas, and they've got their little story, and then they backgrounded it, and then they, for some reason, are at a loss, Now what do you say? That problem happened. You say the steps you took to deal with it. But this is a point where you really need to reflect and analyze and share how you think. And if you're stalled out on your essay at that point as well, I'll just show you the two best resources. Go to the handouts. Handout 11 is on how to add depth. So where you talk about what you learned. Just read this. It's not very long at all. Look, it's like 2 pages. What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about others? What did you learn about the world in general? Just share your ideas. They don't need to be super deep. You don't need to sound super smart. Just how did you think about it? Was there something good that came out of this? What went through your head? How did you feel? And here are this might help you get going too. Here are some actual lines that might help you launch into this type of reflective thinking. I never thought about it before, but now I believe that, and say what you think. Or when I look back at what happened, I realized that before I was this way, and now I'm a little different. Or I had this problem, and what did you draw on for inspiration in dealing with it? Did a teacher give you some interesting advice? Do you remember a quote that you read on a blog? Include that. What helped you deal with that problem? Here's one. It took me a while, but after talking about it with my friends, I saw things differently. Now I think that. Or you could say, before I used to think this, but after this happened, now I look at it a little differently, and say how. Or you could say, for the first time I started to wonder about, you had a problem, you dealt with it. Did it make you think about something else? Did it make you inspire you to do something? Share that. Things slowly started to change. I began to notice that I began to notice that I did things differently. Give details, or I realized something, or I didn't care about this before. Now I care about what it means to be loyal. Maybe, or at first it seemed as though nothing had changed, but then I started to understand that. So I just want to encourage you in this reflective part that there's no right or wrong. You're not getting graded. The whole deal is just to share what goes through your mind and how you kind of think about stuff, how you take an idea and you turn it around and look at it and weigh the good and the bad. It's a little tricky. Just try to get some of your ideas out. And again, there's no one way to do it. This is you. This is how you think. So let's see. So that's one great way to learn how to add depth. And there's also one of the steps, step 7, how to explain meaning. There's a little video, and it has tips along the same line of once you have your story and you've dealt with your problem, how to then go deeper, how to talk about why it matters and what you value, what you care about. So let me really quickly, we won't have a lot more time, but I want to go over the last prompt, which I love because it's a lot more fun. It's a new one. All these are new this year, I think. Topic C, you've got a ticket in your hand. Where will you go? What will you do? What will happen when you get there? So this is like a creative writing prompt. They want you to use your imagination and have a little fun with it. It's okay. This is your time to be, out of the box. So you got a ticket in your hand. The first thing I'd brainstorm is like, where do you want to go? If you have a ticket, where are you going? And what form of transportation will you use? Do you want to ride a bullet train? Do you want to go in a hot air balloon? Do you want to go back in the future? Do you want to, back in the future. Do you want to go back in the past? Or do you want to go time travel into the future? The idea is now you're going somewhere, but the most important part of this question is what will happen when you get there? So you start your story. You could actually start when you get there and then background it the same way. But again, look at this. What will happen when you get there? And remember how I talked about when something happens, you need a problem, right? If you go home and you say, you won't believe what happened today, it's because you're going to tell about some sort of problem. Happen is a problem. So that idea of a problem works magic. If you're going to go to Mars, don't just talk about how you rode this spaceship and you got on Mars and it's full of craters and talk about, have something happen, have something go wrong. Just at least one thing go wrong, and then something will have happened and it'll be interesting. And my advice is start with the thing happening and then go back and explain how you got there. Then if you start with what happened, it will hook the reader. That's why I guess last time you're probably sick hearing this, problems. Problems are your best friend. And if you want to brainstorm all the different shapes that they take, there's a handout on problems. Problem finder. Big ones, little ones, happening to you, happening because of who you are, mistake, challenge, move, obstacle, flaw, obsession, changes, a move, setback, phobia, conflict, misunderstanding, accident, disorder, illness. So there you have it. I don't know, is there anything I didn't cover, Angela? Or does anybody have any questions?
Right. If anyone has questions, students, if you could type them into the chat feature at the bottom of the device right now, that would be awesome. Janine, I know we did hit all 3 topics, and so students, hopefully this was really helpful to you. Just a reminder, every single thing that Janine went through today is available to you through the myregion1.org website. Once again, if you are having any struggles at all accessing the website, please talk to your GEAR facilitator because every handout, every video, every bit of information that Janine was just referring to is available to you and your teachers completely free of charge through the website, as well as a bunch of other features to help you in your college search. So Janine, we're going to go ahead and close this cyber-mentoring session. Teachers, we will be back at 2:30 for one final session today. Students, thank you for joining us. Good luck.
Thank you so much. Good luck to you guys.
Yeah, we wish you all the best.